views and opinions expressed by the host do not reflect that of the store and its management. Furthermore, the views and opinions expressed by the guest do not reflect that of the host, the show, the store, and the network.
Tonight with Floyd Abunda. Good day, everyone. I am Floyd Shera, your host, and I am delighted to be with you all. For today, we will be tackling about one of Dr. Jose Rizal's literary piece entitled Mi Ultimo Adios. Of course, this show will not be possible without its guests. I invited some of the best historians and critics all over the Philippines. So here are Genevieve Samson, Toni Orain, Mika Sumpingan, and Fernandez. Hello girls, welcome to the program. I guess I should not keep you waiting. We will now start the interview. So first, can I ask you, Genevieve, what is the literary work about? What is or are its manifest message? What are its latent message?
Thank you for that wonderful question, Tito Floyd. So to answer the first question, which is what is the literary work about? Literally translated into Aking Huling Paalam, or My Last Farewell, Mi Ultimo Adios was Dr. Jose Rizal's final and one of the most widely acknowledged masterpieces that continue to immortalize its presence in the minds of Filipinos today. It was written on the eve of Dr. Rizal's execution day in a paper twice the size of his palm in Castilian or Castilla. Andrade from Lifestyle Inquirer said that it was Trinidad. Attorney Jimenez from The Freeman said it was Lucia. And user Ron from Pinoy Stalgia said that it was Narcisa who received the poem inside what was believed to be an alcohol lamp, written on both sides and folded several times to be inserted in the fuel tank, along with other letters intended for his other siblings. The piece was initially undated, untitled, and unsigned Tito Floyd. It was titled by a friend of his, Mariano Ponce, as Mi Ultimo Pensamiento, but the title that stuck was from Father Mariano Dacanay. It contained 14 5-line stanzas of Rizal's resignation or contentment in offering his life for his motherland without any regrets. To answer the second question from Tito Floyd, which is what is its manifest or obvious message? The poem stated several times that while he may be departing soon, as his execution was during the early morning of December 30, 1896, at what was once Bagong Bayan and now Luneta, Rizal asked that those that he will leave behind to take care of themselves. His siblings, his friends, his parents, and even his lover were all mentioned in the poem Tito Floyd. He stated that he was sorry for all the pain that he caused and that he was grateful for having them in the lonely and isolated road of fighting for the Philippines' independence. Rizal's reverent love for his country was showcased all throughout the poem, as most of the lines were toward the Philippines, with Rizal stating his willingness to die for her. Rather than being wistful at Rizal's mention of dying, the readers might shed a tear out of the fullness in their hearts, knowing that our national hero is joyous even at the fact that it is for his country, Tito Floyd. Rizal talked about the Philippines with utmost praise, that it will be an honor to lay down his life for her, and that he is at peace with the fact that he will continue to remain close in the embrace of his beloved, the Philippines. And what would one wish the most for one's beloved, if not for the freedom along with their esteemed dignity? Diba, Tito Floyd? Rizal's wishes for himself were humble, wherein he wishes to be one with the land he had died for in a humble cemetery with a humble acceptance of being forgotten if it comes to it, contrary to his ardent desire of bringing well-deserved greatness, recognition, and glory to the Philippines. To answer the final question, which is what is its latent or hidden message, there were several lines depicting visualizations of sunrise. The time of Rizal's execution was at exactly 7 a.m. It is worth noting that aside from the vivid use of color in a poetic context igniting passion in the reader, this can be connected to the dying words of the assumed Elias in Noli Me Tangere's last chapter, Noche Buena. Mamamatay akong hindi nakitang sumilay ang bukang liwayway sa aking bayan. Kayong makakakita, salubungin siya. Huwag niyong lilimutin ang mga nabuwal sa dilim ng gabi. as translated by Virgilio Almario back in 2011. They carry the same message of wanting to remain in their country, willing to fight for its independence, even if it cost them their life. Just like Elias's dying wish, whispered to Basilio and to the night a few hours shy of daybreak, Mi Ultimo Adios is Rizal's dying wish, wherein he hoped that his passionate will shall carry on to the future, that the now present Filipinos will carry the same pride, protectiveness, and patriotism when it comes to serving and defending our country. Rizal hoped that his death and the death of those that followed after him will serve as a reminder to every Filipino who will read it, every youth whom he believed as a torchbearer of the future, that there is still glory in our motherland. Rizal's farewell resonated an implied hope that the present will continue to look forward to the future, leaving the past behind but never forgetting it. His time may be over, but it is our turn at the torch now. All my answers for Tito Floyd's questions were referenced from Andrade's 2015 article in Enquirer Lifestyle, Dorian Marina's 2018 blog, the Life and Works of Rizal website, the transcript of Jose Rizal's Mi Ultimo Adios in Project Gutenberg, Virgilio Almario's 2011 translation of Noli Me Tangere, and the Filipino translation of Mi Ultimo Adios from the joserizal.com website.
Very well said, Genevieve. Of course, this is one of the best literary works of Rizal and one of the most special since it is written before the verge of his death. It is indeed good that we impart such knowledge to educate others, especially the youth, about what lies beyond this literary piece. Now, allow me first to explain how did Rizal show his love and respect to our country in this literary piece. Since time immemorial, stories about Jose Rizal, our national hero, have been published and spread across the country. This allowed us to form a general image as to whom Rizal really is and what are the ideologies that he advocates. Hence, schools and other universities also strengthen and deepen our prior knowledge about Rizal as we study and inculcate the events that have happened in his life and use them as an inspiration in imitating Rizal. Even before Rizal's execution, his love and reverence to the country has already been evident as he strives to use his knowledge and wisdom to free this country from the abusive hands of the Spaniards. Mi Ultimo Adios is translated in English as My Last Goodbye, which, from the name itself, suggests Rizal's final message and words to the country and its people, including his family and friends. This is according to Fleming 2019. Upon reading the material, the virtue of nationalism and patriotism has already been evident as he expressed how honored he is to die for the salvation and freedom of his homeland. This was evident in the line where he said, "With gladness I give you my life, sad and repressed." This implies that his love for the country reigns over his love for himself. This manifests her selflessness as he goes through such challenges just for this country not to be oppressed. Aside from this, it has already been imposed on us that he intentionally and willingly used his works, specifically his well-known works Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo, to attack the Spanish government. This greatly manifests his drive and love for the country. It was also evident in the second stanza, line number 3 and 4, that the location of one's death does not matter. What matters the most is its cause and purpose. His high regard, respect, and admiration to his country is also manifested in stanza 4, which says, "My dreams when scarcely a lad adolescent, my dreams when already a youth, full of vigor to attain, were to see you, gem of the sea of the Orient, your dark eyes, dry, smooth brow, held high plain, without frown, without wrinkles, and of shame without stain." This stanza explains the characteristic of Rizal that sets him apart to others, which is his holistic thinking. Rizal was exposed to brutality and cruelty of the Spanish rule as her mother was abused and imprisoned for a crime she did not intentionally commit. He also saw the injustices of the Spaniards through the execution of Gomburza, which is specifically Mariano Gomez, Jose Burgos, and Jacinto Zamora, using the garrote, a strangulation device. These are the 3 priests who were accused to be the cause of the mutiny in Cavite. This is according to Malasig 2022. Since then, his mind has already been broadened, which is a key factor that motivated him to achieve the country's independence. Hence, he manifested respect as he strove to make the country's flag rise up high. To die is to give you life. This is a line in this poem manifesting how his sacrifice will be worth more than 1,000 diamonds. This simply indicates that his death will be a key to make this country free from slavery. As such, his aspirations came true as he enkindled and inflamed the nationalistic hearts of the people, allowing their ideologies and aspirations to coincide with Rizal. What I mean is that people have started to follow Rizal's footsteps in a different manner as they stood up against Spanish rule. Prolific examples of people who were inspired from his nationalistic sacrifice is Andres Bonifacio and other Philippine heroes. The stanza 6 also elicits Rizal's loving sacrifice as he emphasized how he will love and enjoy the company of the Philippine soil. He also paid respect to those heroes and martyrs who have strived to achieve freedom but ended up being killed. Let them turn to dust to cover your earthly space. This is another line from the poem which signifies how he wants to cover the motherland. It is a hidden symbolism of how he wants to embrace, respect, and be with our motherland, even if his memories have already been buried in the past. This is according to Lim and D. Throughout the entire poem, it tends to impart the idea that love reigns above all. This simply means that no matter how hard the situation gets, no matter what consequences your actions will face, if one is geared with love and aligned to what he really wants and advocates, it is powerful enough to conquer such. This has been manifested by Rizal. Instead of thinking how to escape the punishment given to him, he accepted it wholeheartedly because he knew to himself that his sacrifice would save the future of his motherland. He even managed to write this poem for us to be inspired by his heroic work and to kindle our hearts with passion and respect for our country. He has paid tribute and respect to the country through this literary piece, as it shows how he embraced his roots and took responsibility for his actions, which later contributed to the Philippine independence. Upon reading some lines, we are able to identify that he also expressed how hopeful he is to the future of the country. With this, allow me to answer the question, how did Rizal show his hopes and vision for the Filipino people and the future? Okay. Throughout Rizal's life, his regard and concern to his fellow Filipinos have been shown since when he was a young boy. This may be probably caused by his early exposure to the injustices experienced by the Filipinos in the hands of the Spaniards. As such, this motivated him to free the Philippines from slavery by exposing the brutality and inhumane acts of the colonizers. As he grew up, he was able to produce many works, and each of which imparts a message to the Filipino people and to the future of the country. His principles and ideologies have also influenced and shaped the society, as institutions and organizations use them as a motivator and a general guide as to how students and people should act. This literary piece does not just speak of his final farewell or message to the Philippines. Instead, it also imparts his vision to the Philippines and his hopes to the future of the motherland. At the first stanza, it was evident that his sacrifice was valued to be the highest and special form of gift that a person could give to the motherland. This is according to Lim and D. This does not literally speak of us imitating his death, but rather us imitating his mindset about contributing something to the country. It somehow encourages us to unleash our nationalistic and patriotic virtues by being an agent of transformation. Through engagement in social activities like election, being a volunteer to different programs for our fellow Filipinos, and being an open citizen. The idea of being an open Filipino citizen means that you are receptive enough to cater ideas, opinions, and principles, but critically inclined with the truth through the help of facts. Connecting this to the modern period, we as Filipinos should take part in the 2022 elections and use the electoral power to choose a leader which will lead the country towards its greatness. We should also use our factual and holistic thinking to differentiate authentic and fraudulent information spreading across social media. Regardless of how big or small our contribution to our country is, what matters the most is our dedication and willingness to take part in reforming the Philippines. This is according to Lim ND. This tends to be the message of some of the stanzas in Rizal's literary work. The importance of passion and dedication is also one of his messages in this poem, because just like him, he was able to reach the peak of his plan and purpose due to his drive in making the country independent as he accepted his death. He also used sunrise, which, if interpreted, symbolizes a new day and hope. This is according to Samplun 2020. It somehow imports that, despite the country's dark and bloody history, the sun still rises and gives us hope for a better future through the youth, which are considered agents and light of the future generation. His aspiration and dream of having a country free from abuse, oppression, and slavery has already been noted in the poem. This can be considered as his hope for the future generation. In addition, what he wants to impart is the idea of using his sacrifice as a source of strength to speak up and to fight the injustices in the country, to use our voice to touch other people's lives and encourage them to make a difference. Our heroes have fought hard to achieve freedom, and we, as Filipinos, we should not be silenced or confined by fear, nor by other people, for us to achieve a country that fulfills Rizal's ambition. The phrase in the literary work saying, "To die is giving you life," implies that his sacrifice served as an eye-opener for us to see the real problem and situation of the country. This also sums up his vision and hope for the future generations and to the Philippines, as it somehow indicates that his death is just the beginning of a new chapter for the country. Through his hopes, we are geared towards the achievement of a country where we are not shadowed and enclosed within a cage. It encourages us to learn from the past and to do our part by using our skills and abilities to make the present days better and the future brighter for the next generations to see. At this outset, let us hear the answer of Miss Sumpingan about what is the most favorite line or part of the work and why.
So, in my opinion, Tito Floyd, Mi Ultimo Adios of Rizal tells us how beautiful our country, the Philippines, is, and how worth it is risking life for it. It tells us how our national hero wants us to always remember and learn from our past and see the truth about how the world views us. He wrote this poem just before his execution by the Spanish colonial authorities in 1896. That is why it shows how Rizal truly loved his country, even during the times that foreign people trodden his beloved country. Each stanza tells us how Rizal felt during those times, when he only felt calm and unafraid because he knew that he was not a traitor and he was willing to die for his country no matter what happened. It tells us that he thinks no other thoughts but only his love and the sake of his country. In the poem, my most favorite line that has really made me think that Rizal was wholeheartedly surrendered his life without any regrets is when he said, "Farewell, my adored land, region of the sun cares, pearl of the Orient Sea, our Eden lost. With gladness I give you my life, sad and repressed, and were it more brilliant, more fresh and at its best, I would still give it to you for your welfare at most." The words in each stanzas are the words of him saying about his willingness to die for his country. He expresses no regret, only gladness, because he knows that risking his life is worth it. He is giving his countrymen the greatest gift he can give, dying to his endless love for the country. He died without any regrets and fear, only with gladness in his heart. He also described his fatherland, used biblical Eden in describing the Philippines during the pre-Hispanic period, which is an image of purity and innocence. He cherishes the beautiful country that he is fighting for. He was happy to surrender his life to the Filipinos because he knew it was worth it. It was worth his life. Even when he was going to die, he was not mad nor hated his countrymen or even the country itself. Instead, he gave a challenge to each Filipino to serve and love our country. Furthermore, Rizal was hopeful that his death would be an inspiration to others. He encouraged everyone, especially the youth, to continue dreaming and work hard to fulfill it.
Yes, that is true. In fact, he encourages everyone to be agents of transformation for our country to prosper and grow and for his predictions and aspirations to be fulfilled. Now, let me go to Miss Toni Orain. So, what lessons did you learn from this work of Jose Rizal? How did it affect your point of view and perception as the youth of today's generation?
After reading the poem by Rizal, I learned that Rizal sought to instill patriotism in Filipinos by expressing his unwavering love for the Philippines. Our national hero's most patriotic poem is without a doubt Mi Ultimo Adios, especially since he gave his life for the freedom of the country. It gives us a reminder to look back on our history and appreciate it. It reminds us, the Filipinos, to see the truth in our history and use it to ignite the fire of patriotism within us. In this piece, patriotism is depicted in such a way that he willingly gives his life for a country. He has captured the spirit of one's love for the nation, in which he is prepared to cherish his home despite the struggles and impending catastrophe. As many people saw through his writings, he offered his life to show his admiration and died for the Filipinos' welfare and independence. Death was seen by many as a frightening occurrence in one's life. However, death became acceptable for him, knowing that through it, the nation would soon be free of the abusive Spaniards' colonialism. Although Rizal couldn't properly say goodbye to his loved ones, his passion for his nation overcame his sorrows. For instance, as stated in the 6th stanza, if over my tomb someday you would see a blow, a simple humble flower amidst thick grasses, bring it up to your lips and kiss my soul so, and under the cold tomb I may feel on my brow warmth of your breath, a whiff of your tenderness. He imagines that once he dies, he will continue to exist in the warm embrace of his country and love his motherland endlessly. Even in the face of mortality, each line of the poem expresses his unwavering love and loyalty to the Philippines and to its people. The second lesson that I learned is Rizal encourages Filipinos to be courageous. Rizal was indeed courageous, as while in prison and waiting to be executed by the firing squad, the national hero still managed to compose his crucial and historical work. The focus of the poem was to encourage his fellow countrymen to strive for independence from Spain. For Rizal, living is not about being a slave to his own country. He refuses to live under oppression and at the hands of the abusive Spanish government. He believes that dying for his motherland, especially for the freedom of his entire fellow countrymen, is a selfless, heroic deed. He refuses to show any sorrow and regret, only joy, knowing that by giving his life, he is giving his nation the opportunity to be free and have its own identity. As seen in the 5th stanza, the lines, "To die to give you life, neath your skies to expire, and in your mystic land to sleep through eternity." So even in his final moments, he put up his defense and spoke for the Filipinos with his pen and paper. So lastly, Tito Floyd, Rizal empowers future generations to always strive for freedom and independence. Despite the fact that Rizal is no longer with us, his ideas, convictions, and legacy continue on and impact the next generation. Although Mi Ultimo Adios was his last historical work, his impact did not end there. The poem, along with Rizal's assassination, sparked the Philippine Revolution. According to an article by Roberts in 2013, during the American occupation, the poem showcased the author's dignity and permanently impacted how Americans saw Filipinos, leading to the passage of the Philippine Bill of 1902. the Philippines still had a long way to go in terms of achieving justice and fairness. For many years, various countries have abused us and utilized violence to acquire power and supremacy in our homeland. For decades, the Filipino people have been tortured and deceived. Rizal saw the injustice of his fellow Filipinos from his childhood until his last breath. As a result, he was able to commit himself to our country. This poem was seen as one of the proofs that Rizal had not changed his mind about his principles. His burning love for the country and his determination to fight for the country's sovereignty and liberty continues to this day. The Spaniards have criticized and condemned him, but he persists in fighting for the rights of all Filipinos and has opened their eyes to the fact that Filipinos are not inferior to any country, particularly Spain. This poem serves as a reminder to Filipinos of their fundamental rights and the right to be treated with respect. In terms of Rizal's impact to the youth, Tito Floyd, as national hero Dr. Rizal once said, "Ang kabataan ang pag-asa ng bayan." Despite its cliché reputation, this line still stands true in this day and age. His literary pieces, specifically Mi Ultimo Adios, inspired the Filipino youth to become more patriotic and to give back to the country. Today, youth participation is higher than ever. The National Youth Commission's National Youth Assessment Study in 2015 provides important insights into the Filipino youth's perspectives on society. According to the study of 2,762 respondents conducted across the country, 69% actively participated in environmental-related activities, and 78% believe that political participation is vital to promote effective governance. Furthermore, 90% said that they were proud to be Filipinos. The works of Rizal acted as a wake-up call for people to recognize the true state of our country. As a result, we, the youth, are more interested and engaged in civic activities and participation. Young Filipinos account for 52% of all registered voters, according to an article by CNN Philippines in 2021. This demonstrates how empowered and committed the youth are to leading the country toward progressive change. However, the youth are not only involved in the electoral process but also in leading themselves. The Sangguniang Kabataan, or SK, a council that represents the youth sector in each barangay in the Philippines, ensures Filipino youth involvement in local administration. It is made up of young leaders aged 18 to 24 who have been chosen to provide community-based youth services. As stated by the Philippine representative Del Rosario in the Permanent Mission of the Philippines to the United Nations in 2019, its mission is to construct youth development programs as well as sufficient, effective, responsive, and enabling mechanisms and support systems that empower youth and assure their meaningful involvement in local government. Through community participation, we can make our voices heard and give our nation hope because we, Filipinos, deserve better leaders and a better quality of life. Overall, Mi Ultimo Adios makes us remember Rizal for his tenacity and patriotism in the face of adversity, for fighting for the rights of all Filipinos and for the truth. Therefore, the youth are inspired by his courage and strength to speak up against the injustices and abuses that still exist today. It reminds us to always choose the road of courage and heroism, whether we take small steps or enormous leaps.
Looks like you really have grasped the meaning and inculcated the ideologies instilled by Rizal in this literary piece. I hope that everyone will realize how these things are important to us, especially in these modern times. Of course, last but not the least, it's time for us to hear the side of Fernandez about the question, in what ways can you promote the lesson or message that Rizal is trying to present in your chosen literary work?
Okay, Tito Floyd, in the work of me, Ultimo, Adios of Rizal, as he states in the poem he wrote, was all about that dedication of his life to his beloved country. We promote his ideals by simply encouraging people to always look back on the actions that our heroes, especially Rizal, have done to us. By being observant in our country, we can see the relevant crisis that up until now is still unresolved just because of some fellow people. Those fellow people that are still unaware or resistant to accepting the real situation of the country. We believe that in order to advocate for people, it still depends on how people can reflect on the messages that Rizal was trying to imply to us. Additionally, some fellow young people are not fully invested when it comes to the history of our country, and it was very alarming. One of the examples is the viral video from the Pinoy Big Brother. In the video, there are two contestants playing a quiz bee task, and they wrongly answered the question that were asked about the history of the Philippines. Filipino youth must pay more attention to historical lessons like this in order to expand their understanding of the country's predicament before and after their generation. We must appreciate every word that Rizal wrote because it symbolizes his faith for the country and also for the people who believe in him that all of us can have freedom in all. Furthermore, participating in civic or social activities can help to spread the messages that Rizal expressed in his work, which would be a significant contribution of our country's social and communal development.
Yes, that is true. We should not take advantage and disregard our history because it has always been part of our Filipino identity. Of course, I will not miss this chance to do fast talk since this is Tonight with Floyd Abunda, but this time, let's make it a little bit different. I am to ask questions and the audience will be the one answering them. Will that be okay? Okay, let's start. What is the nickname of Dr. Jose Rizal? Is it J. Rizal or Pepe? What did Rizal use to fight the Spaniards? Pen or sword? Where was Rizal executed? Laguna or Bagumbayan? The correct answers are Pepe for his nickname, Pen as an instrument in fighting the Spanish rule, and Bagumbayan as the place where he was executed. So that's it for today. Thank you again, girls, for being here today. Again, we should always remember and appreciate the life and works of Rizal as they are agents and step for growth and transformation. Once again, stay safe, God bless, and have a great day, everyone.